Talk about some of the common popular subjects that our viewers ask us about. We're going to talk about mechanics liens on vehicles and if that's something that is a way to get a title if you're an authorized automotive professional, or is it a way you can lose your vehicle if you're a vehicle owner? You have to be careful. You could have somebody basically swoop in and take your car from you if they file a mechanics lien. We're also going to talk about electric vehicle values and how battery health is a sneaky way for vehicles to have higher or lower values. It may not be apparent just by looking at it. We're going to talk about building permits on real estate, where there's a couple, I believe it was in Minnesota. We'll take a look at the story where they built a very minor addition to a deck. It wasn't even a structure, it wasn't a house. And they may actually cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars because of unpermitted work under prosecution for a very little known and often overlooked law. And if this law becomes established that has precedent, there may be other property owners in that jurisdiction that could have some serious problems. We're going to look at quitclaim deeds on real estate. If a quitclaim deed is a way to transfer a property, and if you see one on a title search, what that means. We're also going to talk about on the business consulting side, what is a business expense and what is the cost of doing business? Are they two different things? Is a business expense or a cost of doing business the same, or are there differences that could make one a good thing and one a bad thing? And last, we'll talk about cyber insurance. And if you're a business owner or an individual, how a cyber liability claim can affect your expense structure or even your business. So let's jump right in. The first thing we're going to talk about is mechanics liens. A mechanics lien is a method that a licensed or authorized automotive business can use to recover cost of a repair or storage. So let's say you're a body shop or repair shop and somebody brings you a vehicle to work on and they say, hey, look, my car's broken. Can you get it back on the road? And you, as a repair shop, say, great, let me take a look at it. You diagnose it, needs a new transmission. Your estimate is $800. Person says, fine, go ahead and fix it. And then after you fix it, they don't come pay the bill, right? So now you're stuck with having all this labor, parts, expense of fixing this car. Now you have storage. This car's taking up room on your lot. Well, fortunately, in almost every state, and this is a state by state process, but in almost every state, there is a method that you can use as a licensed automotive garage to be able to recover the cost of doing that. And what is that method? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to file for a mechanics lien. Now, here's how that works. First, you file a notice in the Department of Motor Vehicles in the jurisdiction where you're located. So if you're, let's say, in Ohio, you go to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, the BMV, and step one is you file a notice of mechanics lien. Now, remember, this is a general description of the process. Varies a little bit state by state, but it's important to see these steps because very often, if you're a legitimate, genuine repair shop and you want to use this to get recovery of your fees, you want to do it the right way. We talk to DMV hundreds of times every day, working on files for clients. They tell us 50% of mechanics lien packages that are sent in are rejected. And we'll talk about the reasons why. The other reason you want to know this is because if you are a person that has a vehicle that needs to get a car title, you may come across somebody that has a repair shop that says, hey, look, pay me $500 and I'll file a mechanics lien to get you your title. It's important to know how that process works so you can decide whether or not that's the best way to go. Anyways, a mechanics lien process starts with a notice of lien that's filed with the titling bureau in that state. And what that notice does is it will put the Department of Motor Vehicles on notice that you're intending to claim this lien. It'll also freeze the title. So the owner or lien holder can't do any funny business with the title records. And then what they'll also do is they'll give you a printout, and that printout will show who they have as the named owner of the vehicle and the named lien holder. Why is that important? Well, you have to have that printout. It's called the transmittal from the DMV, because step 2 is you have to send out official notices to those two parties by certified mail. And you might say, well, I don't need that notice. I know who the owner is. I have their information on my repair order. I have their name and address written down on a piece of paper. Doesn't matter. You have to use the exact name and address that's on that transmittal form from the DMV. Because if you mail that notice to any other address, even a different name spelling, that's going to create a rejection later. And we'll talk about that. So step 2, very important, you have to send out a letter of notice to the owner and the lien holder as exactly listed on the title records. And that notice has to have very specific wording and has to tell the person that they owe money on the car. You have to give them an opportunity to pay the bill, even the lien holder. You have to tell them where the vehicle is. You have to tell them how the fees were calculated and what the exact fees are. And you have to give them a statutory period of time to respond to that. Some states it's 30 days, could be 45 days, could be 60 days. In some states, it depends on the value of the vehicle. So great, you send out the letter, you wait your period of time, nobody responds. Most of the time, you're never going to get a response. The lien holder doesn't care. The owner, obviously, if they wanted the car, they would have been there before. So your 30, 45 days goes by, nothing happens. Now what? Well, step 3 is you have to publish a notice in the newspaper, publication that tells the general public that you're offering this vehicle for somebody to come forward if they have a claim against it or if they want to pay the bill. Now, you don't necessarily have to take that offer, right? You can decide you want to pay more for it. So if somebody comes forward and said, look, I'll give you $2,000 for that vehicle to clear the lien, you can decide, I don't want to take that. I'll just bid $2,000 of my own money. Remember, as the licensed garage, you can bid yourself and the money's just going to you. So it's not like you have to come out of pocket. So, but you do have to offer the public the opportunity to come forward and bid on the vehicle. Most people aren't going to show up. You're never going to get people to show up, but you have to have a time and date when the vehicle is available to be seen and bid on. And you have to wait another 25 or 30 days for that period of time to go by. So now you've done all these steps. Everything's done. Step 4 is you then take all those documents, your initial filing of lien, the transmittal, the notices by certified mail, the ad from the newspaper, and you attach all that together along with an affidavit that says, yes, I did these things, and you attach it to a title application and you send it to the DMV for them to issue you a title in your name or whoever you want. In most cases, you also have to attach some other things. So let's take a look at what are the requirements. Give you an example. This one happens to be from the state of Texas. So here is the official notices about mechanics liens, and we'll scroll up to the top to look at the header. Here is motor vehicle mechanics lien process and procedure, Department of Motor Vehicles in Texas. We're going to scroll down to the important part, which is the statutes. Okay. The holder of a lien under the subchapter who retains possession during that period shall give notice to the last known registered owner and each lien holder. Remember, we talked about that. You have to give notice. You have to give notice that the holder of the lien is licensed as a dealer. If you are not a franchise dealer, I mean, if you're not a new car dealer, you have to jump through more hoops. They figure if you're a new car dealer, you're probably not going to be running a scam for mechanics liens. But because of the fact that mechanics liens are very often used to get titles for cars that really aren't a mechanics lien, it's a fake mechanics lien, they make you jump through some more hoops. So what do you have to provide? The physical address of where the repairs were made. All right, so you have to tell the DMV and the owner where the repairs were made, the legal name of the person that did the repairs, the taxpayer identification number, so your business ID number, Most important, a signed copy of the work order authorizing repairs. This is crucial. This is where a lot of these get rejected. If you don't have a signed authorization to have the work done, you're probably out of luck. And you might think, well, I'll just make one up. Yeah, well, guess what? A person who commits an offense if the person knowingly provides false or misleading information in a notice required. So if you make up fake repair orders or authorizations or anything that's fake, you are now committing a felony. Actually, in Texas, it's a misdemeanor. But you might think you'll get away with it. You're not. The DMV in every state officially knows that this mechanics lien process is very, very frequently used for fraud, right? You'll see ads in Craigslist for companies that say, look, you need a title for a vehicle, bring it to us, give us the VIN number, we'll file a fake mechanics lien, and we'll get you your title. So the DMV knows that there's a lot of fraud going on. So they very highly scrutinize these. If you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're out of luck. Also, it doesn't show it on this page, but there's also a time requirement that you have to do this within a certain period of time. You can't sit on a car for 3 years and then file a mechanics lien, right? It has to be done in a timely manner. Every state has a different rule. Some states is 6 to 18 months. Some states is a year. You have to start it after a certain period of time has gone by. You can't start it the next day. You have to wait at least a few months, but you can't wait too long. So there's a window of opportunity. Make sure that if you're doing a mechanics lien, you know what you're supposed to do. If you are just a Joe Schmo fly-by-night backyard mechanic, you're probably not going to be able to do a mechanics lien. This is only allowable by licensed automotive facilities, a repair shop, a body shop, a dealership, a towing yard with a specific automotive license, not just any business license, but an automotive license. So be aware of mechanics liens. They're a valuable, powerful method. You have a privilege given to you as a automotive facility to do mechanics liens, but it's something that's abused a lot. And if that's the case, then you are going to find that it's going to get rejected. So mechanics liens are valuable, but they're touchy. Make sure you put some comments, questions. If you have more questions about mechanics liens, you can reach our website, Car Titles, which has more information about that. Next subject we're going to talk about here in a moment is going to be EV batteries. Electric vehicle batteries is a very big subject for vehicle value. Look, the same electric vehicle with the same mileage might be worth $10,000 less if the battery is worn out. So you want to make sure that you have that check. So we're going to take a quick break and see about some resources you might have available to you to get professional advice. We'll be back on the other side in about 60 seconds.
Are you tired of automated systems and chatbots when you need assistance? Experience actualhuman.com and connect with real professionals, not automation. At actualhuman.com, we bring you a network of professionals who are excited to answer your questions and provide guidance. Getting started is easy. Let us show you how. Here's how it works. Step 1. Select the best date and time for your video call. Step 2. Describe your situation and the areas you're looking for advice. Step 3. Connect one-on-one with an expert and get the undivided attention that you deserve. Experience the difference. Visit actualhuman.com today and schedule your professional consultation. Actualhuman.com. Expert guidance from real people.
All right, so we're back. So here's the thing. Electric vehicles, as everybody knows, is the hot subject in automotive retailing. In some states, they are basically canceling gasoline vehicles. They're canceling internal combustion engine vehicles. You can only buy electric vehicles after a certain year. Some states are talking about 2030, right? That's only, 6 years away? I mean, the 2024s will be out soon, right? I mean, it's June of 23. The 24s will be out in a couple months. I think there's some models of vehicles, some makes already have their 2024s out in the dealerships. But in most brands, that model year comes out in September. So 2 or 3 months from now, they'll be 2024s. If your state is going to require that every new vehicle is sold in 2030 is an electric vehicle, no more gas, you only got 6 years to be prepared for an electric vehicle. Now, some people might say, I want to buy a used electric vehicle, or they're worried about the value of their trade-in if they have an EV down the road. Well, here's the thing. Used electric vehicles are a potential source of great deals. However, there's a problem. You'll take a look at this article this happens to be from Europe, United Kingdom, but it applies here too. Battery health concerns are the single biggest barrier to unlocking the used electric vehicle market, right? The EV transition could be fast-tracked by more than a decade if steps are taken to improve consumer confidence in the secondhand EV market, right? The sale of diesel and petrol cars will be banned by 2030 in the UK. Many states in the US are doing the same thing. However, the used car market is being held back. The used EV market, right? The used EV market report surveyed 2,000 drivers, and they said 61% of drivers said they would purchase an EV. Over a quarter of them would not buy a used EV unless concerns around batteries were addressed. So this is a big deal. If you're in the car business, or even if you're just a consumer, you want to know what are the assurances of the health of secondhand EV batteries. And right now, there's very little way to evaluate that. You know, the dealership might tell you, hey, this is a great car, the battery's good. But again, you want to get your own third-party secondhand valuation of it. If you're going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars for a used EV, you don't want to find out a month later that the battery is no good, because guess what? The battery is probably worth half of the value of the vehicle, if not more. In some cases, a dead battery in an electric vehicle totals the car. If you buy a used EV, let's say that was brand new, was 60,000, now it's worth 40, depreciated, and you find out 2 months later, 6 months later, the battery is not holding a charge, or it's diminished or damaged, you may find out that the battery to replace by the time you do parts and labor, it could be 25 or 30,000. We've seen news stories where the battery in an electric vehicle was actually more than the value of the car. So getting a handle on the resilience and the longevity of electric vehicle batteries is crucial. If that doesn't happen, no one's going to want to buy them. They'll be throwaway, just like your phone. You know, you have a cell phone, when your battery dies, most of the time you just throw it away. Well, that's fine for a phone that's $800,000-$900,000. It's not great, but it's just part of the cost of owning a phone. If you keep your phone for 3 years and it costs you $1,000 and you throw it away, well, that's $300 a year that it costs you to have that phone. If you buy a $50,000 electric vehicle and you have to throw it away in 4 years, well, that's $12,000 a year. That's not going to work. So getting a handle on the remaining life of an electric vehicle battery is crucial. Now, you're not going to figure that out from the mileage. The driven over-the-road miles on an electric vehicle has nothing to do with the state of health of the battery. Just like with a gasoline vehicle, there's factors of highway miles, city miles. Electric vehicles are affected by how many times it was charged. Was it a fast charge or a trickle charge? Was it driven in high heat? Was it driven a lot in stop and go traffic? If you drive it on the highway, actually, electric vehicle batteries wear out faster. So it's still early. Electric vehicles, pure electric vehicles, have only been around for 10 or 12 years in high volume, but there's not much data on how these batteries are. All you hear are the horror stories about somebody who buys one, finds out that they have to spend $15,000 or $20,000 for a battery. So make sure, if you're considering a used electric vehicle, you get a good evaluation of the life remaining in that battery. It's not like a used car. If you buy it and the brakes are worn out, you have to spend $300 for brakes. Or even if a transmission blows up on a used car, you have to spend $1,500 for a transmission. That would be terrible. What if it was $15,000 instead of $1,500? So make sure that as you're evaluating electric vehicles, that you consider the health of that battery, and you definitely don't want to take the dealer's word for it. So what is our next subject? What we're going to talk about is permits. This may seem like something that might not affect you, but here's a case out of, it's actually Indianapolis. And let's take a look at it, because this could affect everybody who lives in this county, and it could affect you if your county or city has the same law. So, story. Indianapolis family faces hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and legal bills over a backyard patio dispute. Little known zoning rule impacts thousands of other homeowners across Indianapolis. And you might think, well, I don't live in Indianapolis. Well, this law exists in a lot of other places. This story is coming from the local news in Indianapolis. So that's why they're mentioning it, but it could affect you as well. What happened with this? So this couple, the Pecks, live on a lake, and they built a backyard patio. And they built this patio. Here it is, picture of it. It's nothing dramatic. It has no huge structures to it. It's a patio. It has a very small little elevated wall. And they have a battle about a zoning law that few people know about. Legal experts say the rule impacts thousands of homeowners across the largest city. If enforced, could cost other families thousands of dollars in fines and legal bill. So what happened was, let's see if we can find it in the article. They built a patio that, here it is right here. How tall is this? Maybe a couple feet. It's not really that big of a deal, but there's a rule in the law that says anything that is 18 inches or greater in height, Indianapolis Code 740-202, anything that's 18 inches or greater in height has to have a permit, has to be done with a permit. And that's called a residential structure. And the ruling from the judge said even patios greater than 18 inches in height are designated as a residential structure subject to city permit requirements. Anything 18 inches tall. Well, this little wall is 18 inches tall. So now it is required to have a permit. And because they didn't get a permit, they have fees and fines for every day that was up. Plus, it probably needs to be torn down because you can't get the permit approval for something already built because they can't see the structure underneath. Well, here he is measuring it, 18 inches. Well, guess what? He's 6 inches taller. What does that mean? Well, if this rule is found to be applicable to anything over 18 inches, this news channel did a little drone shot of neighborhoods in and around where this house is. And what they found was there were hundreds and hundreds of houses that had all kinds of small structures that were built more than 18 inches tall. One of them had a little enclosure for the bus stop for the kid to sit in before the bus picked him up. One had a enclosure for the firewood, right? One had a well pump cover. And all of these things are now in excess of 18 inches, and they could cost $100,000 in fine. And here's the problem. If the city lets one of them slide, now it invalidates the law. So the city might have to be required to enforce this over everybody. So if you are considering building a structure, a shed, small barn, even an awning for your window, make sure you understand what the zoning requirements are. It's terrible to pull permits. It's terrible to get approvals, but you don't want to be in the position of these people. You know, the news story, I watched one of the video clips. They are probably already out $150,000 in legal fees, and they might have another $100,000 in fines, and they have to spend $30,000 or $40,000 to tear out the deck. So there could be in for $300,000 in cost plus not have a deck. it's something to keep in mind as you're doing improvements on your property. Look, a lot of rural areas don't have these kind of rules where you don't have to care about it, but this is not an HOA. This isn't a condo. This is somebody's private single family home that is having the government do this. So building permits are a big deal. You want to make sure that you are doing it the right way. You're not doing something that's going to get you into trouble. What's next on the list? Next, we're going to talk about real estate in terms of property records. And one of the most common types of property records that you'll see filed is what's called a quit claim deed. QUIT, quit claim deed. Now, first of all, make sure that you don't confuse it with the word quick. It's not a quick, like fast claim deed. It may be a quick way to transfer property, but it's not a quick claim deed. It's a quit claim deed. And a quit claim deed is a simple, fast, and dirty way to transfer ownership in real estate. And you might say, well, that's great. I want to, buy a piece of property and I'm going to get a quit claim deed. Well, you may not want to do that. Here's why. Let's take a look at one. This is an example form. And remember, we're not attorneys. We're not giving you legal advice. This is just an example of what property records are. We are certified title examiners, so we do know about property records. So if you notice, this is a quit claim deed. It's very simple. It's just a one-page thing. It'll tell you who's prepared it and where the jurisdiction is, state and county. And what it says is the grantor, which is the person giving away the rights or transferring the rights, hereby conveys and quit claims to this person all interests which I have in the following real estate. That's it. It just says, whatever interest I have in this real estate, I'm giving to you. Period. End of story. There's no other language, no other wording. That's it. Now, when you see what's called a warranty deed, which is a full deed on a property, it's going to really detail that the person receiving the property rights, the grantee, what they're getting. They're getting all these different rights, the right of seizure, the right of quiet possession. There's a whole list of rights you get when you get a warranty deed. And it's basically, like it sounds like, warranted. It's guaranteed. If you are not getting a warranty deed, getting a quitclaim deed, you're only getting whatever rights that person had. And the question is, what if they didn't have any rights? What if they weren't the owner? Look, anybody can give you a quitclaim deed. I could give you a quitclaim deed on the Empire State Building legally. Since I don't have any rights in it, what I'm giving you is all interest which I have in the property. Well, I don't have any interest, so you're getting nothing. It doesn't mean I can't write you up a quitclaim deed and sign it over to you. Just because you're getting a quitclaim deed doesn't mean you're getting anything of value. So it might be a way to fix a problem with a property. Sometimes it's done if the name is spelled wrong or if one person wants to put it in their name and their spouse's name. But it's not something that gives you any guarantee. And it's something to be suspicious of you if you see it in the chain of title and you're not sure if you're going to get something. You might want to get good legal advice, find out what the reason that quitclaim deed exists in that title record, because it's not the best thing in the world to have. Obviously, if you're buying real estate, you're probably sophisticated enough to know what you should be getting for documents. But in some cases, people are told something by a seller, told something by an investor that wants to take your money, and you think a quitclaim deed is good enough. Even if it's filed in land records, doesn't make it any more valuable. Just because the clerk of court stamped their label on it saying, I received this and it's filed, it doesn't make it any more valid than the paper it's written on. So we're going to take a quick break. This one will be about 10 or 20 seconds. And we'll be back to talk about cyber. No, let's talk about business expenses. Let's talk about business expenses when we come back.
Are you tired of automated systems and chatbots when you need assistance? Experience actualhuman.com and connect with real professionals, not automation. At actualhuman.com, we bring you a network of professionals who are excited to answer your questions and provide guidance. Getting started is easy. Let us show you how. Step 1. Select the best date and time for your video call. Step 2. Describe your situation and the areas you're looking for advice. Step 3. Connect one-on-one with an expert and get the undivided attention that you deserve.
All right, so we're back. So many of our viewers and clients are small business owners. And one of the subjects that comes up is business expenses and how to evaluate things on your profit and loss statement, your P&L, your income and loss statement. Hopefully income, not loss. And you'll have expenses offered to you on a regular basis. And by that, I mean, you're going to have people trying to sell you stuff, advertisers, marketers, tech companies, all kinds of expenses will come up where people are trying to take your money as a business owner. Now, normally they try to offer you something in return, something that sounds great, that's going to make you more money, but they're going to try to give you more expenses on your P&L. You probably are thinking, I already got enough of those on my P&L. I don't want any more, which is great. But first, before you evaluate any new expenses or cost or opportunities, first take a look at every single line item on your profit and loss statement and break it down into actually the underlying itemized bills. And what you want to do is highlight each one of them and identify, is it a business expense or cost of doing business? What's the difference? If it's just a business expense, meaning all it does is cost you money, you want to second guess to see if you need to keep that. There are some things which are a cost of doing business. What's the difference? Well, if you have an employee that you need to help serve your customers, that's a required cost of doing business. It actually doesn't cost you anything because whatever you're paying them helps you make more money. Maybe you have a salesperson, right, that costs you $10,000 a month, but if they're making you $100,000 a month, that's not really an expense. That's a cost of doing business. I know it's word games and really everything's an expense, but hear me out. Let's say if you have a billboard that costs you $2,000 a month. Is that a cost of doing business or is it an expense? Well, I don't know. How much money is that billboard making for you? Maybe you don't know. What would happen if you took it down? Would you still sell the same amount of orders? If you did, that would be a business expense that maybe you don't need. I'll give you an example. We had a situation back with one of our companies many years ago where we were doing advertising through a certain channel. I won't mention which one it is, a certain type of advertising. And there was going to be a 2-week period, 2 or 3 week period, where we had some people in one division of the company and another division that wanted to basically switch roles. We had some people that worked in, one area that said, look, I want to work over here in this department. And these people said, yeah, I want to work over here too. So we were going to cross-train the people to work in the other, take on a new job, basically. And because we knew that there would be a little bit of downtime and learning curve and the people wouldn't be great at their new job right away, we said, look, let's slow down orders for that 2 or 3 week period of time. Let's not try to drum up as much business during that time. We want to keep things slowed down a little bit. So we looked and said, how are we going to do that? We're not going to turn away customers. So let's try to slow down the advertising to not have as many leads coming in. Well, most of the advertising we had, it's not something you can turn on and off with the switch. It's out there. But this one area we found is something that we were basically running on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And we could turn that off and said, look, let's just turn off these ads for a couple weeks while these people are learning their new job. And then we'll turn it back on. Sure enough. Okay, great. Turn off the ads. Well, guess what? You know where the punchline's going, right? The business did not slow down. In fact, actually, the business went up during that time, which was a good thing. And fortunately, the people in those jobs figured out real quick how to handle that volume of business. But the reason why we found out was those ads were actually cannibalizing from other ads we did. And when people saw both of them, it was confusing and less people ordered. Once we took those out, boom, the message was more simplified. Well, we found out that that was not a cost of doing business, that was a business expense. So you can also use this when you're talking to salespeople that are trying to sell you something. Many times, part of that sales process, and you've heard us talk about this before, is to tell the prospect, tell the customer, meaning you, I want you to tell me your budget, how much you have to spend. What's your budget on this thing, on this advertising, on this employee, on this rent, whatever it is they're trying to sell you. What's your budget? How much you got to spend? And they're trying to lock you into a certain amount. How much can they get out of you, right? So it's a trick question, and a lot of times it's tricky to answer because you don't want to show your hand. What you can tell the person is, well, I don't really have a budget, right? The bottom line is, if um, the thing you're asking me to spend money on makes me money, then I can spend $1 million. If I spend $1 million and it makes me 10 million, great. Matter of fact, I'm going to ask you, how much more can I spend? Because if 1 million makes me 2 million, I'm sorry, if 1 million makes me 10, let me spend 2 million and get 20, right? So I don't have a budget. I got all the money in the world if it's making me money. So on the other side of the coin, if it costs $1, $1, and it makes me zero, I can't afford $1. I'm too poor to afford $1 that makes me nothing, right? And you can turn the tables around on that salesperson, and then they can prove to you how their thing's going to make you money. And also it gets them off the hook, it gets you off the hook for having to answer these questions about what's your budget. None of your business what my budget is. If it makes me money, I'm going to spend what I need to spend, right? So identify things as a business expense versus cost of doing business or cost of making more business, which is the better word. And you can think about that in your mind. It's a word game. I get it. It's a parlor trick in your head to categorize things a little bit differently, but the cost of doing business and business expense are two different things. And you want to know where each one of the things you write a check for every day, every week you write checks. You want to make sure you know if that check is something that you need to maintain and grow your business, or if it's just money you're throwing away. Because if you're making a lot of money as a business, a lot of times you'll have wasted expenses within your P&L. In fact, every 3 or 4 months, if you go through your checking account and your payments and see what you're spending money on, you can almost always find $1,000 or $2,000 of stuff you're spending money on that you don't need anymore. Some subscriptions for $30 for an app, some ad you're running for $50, these little, gotchas on your automatic deductions or recurring fees that you can get rid of and put that money back into something more productive, whether it's your own income in your pocket or something that makes you more money. Business expense, cost of doing business, two different things. Evaluate all your numbers. So we're not going to take a break, but we're going to transition from this subject to insurance. Nobody likes to hear about insurance. Insurance is the most boring subject in the world. If you ever went to any kind of a social event, a party, and somebody's an insurance salesperson, everybody steers clear of that person because they're going to try to sell insurance. There's a reason for that. But this is not about the kind of insurance normally you hear about. Homeowners, auto, life insurance, health insurance, all those things are boring. This is about something that didn't exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's called cyber liability insurance. So what's happening is the fastest growing type of damage or claim to a business and some consumers is cyber events. So all these computers you see behind me, if one day I came in the morning and I was hacked and the company had a ransomware attack or cyber attack, all those computers would not be turned on. There'd be a blank screen or maybe a skull and crossbones on the screen. And there'd be a message saying, look, we have infiltrated all your computers. And if you want access to these machines back, you have to pay us a ransom. That's why it's called a ransomware. And you have to pay it in Bitcoin, and then we'll turn your machines back on. Just like the line from Trading Places. Anybody know that reference? Turn those machines back on. By the way, today is the 40th anniversary of Trading Places. Great movie. So if you want your machines turned back on, you have to pay a ransom. Now, if you have cyber insurance, that insurance company would be paying the claim to get you whole, depending on what kind of coverage you have. Check with your agent. But more importantly, it probably wouldn't happen in the first place because cyber insurance companies, the big companies that provide the backing for all these policies, they won't let you have a claim incident if they can avoid it, because they're going to prevent it. Unlike other insurance that sit back and say, look, you have fire insurance. Hey, I hope you don't have a fire. Cross your fingers. If you do, call us up and we'll pay the bill. But, we're not going to really try to prevent it too much. They might give you some tips. Cyber insurance companies, on the other hand, they will be pinging all those computers every single day or every week or whatever time period your own company does. And they're going to be looking for vulnerability. They're going to be looking for activity where a hacker is trying to bang into your system. Because here's the thing, the hackers don't get in on the first try. It may take them weeks or months to get in. They're going to try different passwords, try different IP addresses, try different phishing attempts. And your insurance company, if you have cyber insurance, is probably going to be looking for those things. It's going to be pinging your system. It'll be sitting out there on your network looking for these attacks. And if they see one, they'll prevent it, because they don't want to pay the claim any more than you want to have one. Because even if you have good insurance and the day you have an attack, they'll help pay the claim, make it whole, fix stuff. It's still going to be the worst day of your life in business because it's going to be annoying and it'll still cost you some money. So having a good cyber insurance carrier, almost as a business partner, as a kind of cyber protection resource, will help you from ever getting hacked in the first place. Well, you might say, well, I'm never going to have any kind of attack like that. Well, guess what? Here's an article from Coalition, one of the best cyber insurance companies out there. Employee actions are driving cyber insurance claims. They analyze all the claims that they had to pay. They determined that phishing escalated in 2022, ransomware dropped, and timely patching remained a problem. A new study found that when it comes to organizing claims, the employees were usually to blame. Look, the employee is not doing this on purpose. Employee's not doing anything wrong. It's just that if you have 50 employees in your company and they all have computers on their desk and they all use mobile devices, maybe they go to Starbucks with their phone, right? And they log into the network to check their email. Maybe they go on vacation and they're on Wi-Fi on the plane. They may not know that that's making your whole company vulnerable. And it's not their fault. You can give them all the training and all the updates and maybe monthly meetings about what to do and what not to do for your logins. But the hackers are sneaky, right? That's their only job in the world, to sit there all day and try to get into your network. Your job is to run your business. Nobody in your company is spending all day trying to keep them out, right? You may have a cyber protection person, but they're probably working on websites and WordPress and all these other things too. So they're not going to be doing it full time. The hackers are doing it full time. They're trying to get into you 100%. So having a cyber policy will help cover the problem if, God forbid, something happens. More importantly, it will help prevent it, because they're going to be sitting on your network. They're going to be pinging your computers to see the vulnerability. Recurring theme, according to the report, was that employee actions such as clicking on malicious links, one example, made claims go up. Such behavior is the greatest contributing factor to organizations that experience a claim. Very simple. Things that employees do are the greatest reason that claims happen. Again, don't blame your employees. They're not bad people. They're not stupid. They're not doing anything wrong. There's only so much you can do. Your employees aren't going to be experts at cyber attacks. They're doing a job. They have a job to do. They're trying to do it in the best way possible, to get the best results for you and your company. The hackers are out there trying to infiltrate that, trying to be experts at getting past the employees' common sense. So be aware that there's not much you can do about the hackers. You're never going to beat them at their own game, because they do this for a living. Hackers are professionals. You might think it's just some kid in a basement. They're not. These are companies that have sales departments, KPIs. They have methods and procedures, just like your company does. And they sit there all day with these war rooms that are trying to get into companies. They're pinging thousands of companies every single day, looking for that one needle in a haystack that'll let them in. You don't want it to be you. So whether you have cyber insurance, you have a cyber protection person on your payroll, or both, be aware, just a matter of time, right? The chances of your building and your company burning to the ground is a lot less than you having a cyber attack, and the cyber attack could do more damage. So that puts another episode in the books. We talked about mechanics liens, electric vehicle batteries, building permits, quitclaim deeds, business expense, and cyber. Next time, we'll probably talk about different types of fraud and Ponzi schemes and how that can affect your business or your personal bank accounts, how people hide assets. We'll probably also talk about how to get professionals to call you back, how to get an attorney to take your case, how to get a licensed professional to give you a bid. You might think, well, don't they want to? They make money. Well, anybody who's been out there trying to get high quality professionals to even answer the phone, you're finding that that's difficult. We'll also talk about abandoned vehicles and their title problems and how they affect the marketplace. And we'll also talk about real estate values and where maybe there's still some cheap houses. And by cheap, I mean maybe $200,000 houses that could be deals. So that being said, make sure and keep putting the comments into the notes to let us know what you want to hear about next. If you have specific questions, you can reach us on the website. If you have comments, you can put them in the comments for whatever platform you're looking at. Is it Twitter? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Put your comments there, and we'll take care of it. And thanks a lot. Check you out in the next episode.